Hello and welcome back to NoBS. Today we return to talking about the awful anti-cop rhetoric that is reaching a fever pitch across the United States of America. This, of course, is coming from a couple of terrible arrests gone wrong that resulted in a couple of people dying in cities both Minneapolis and Atlanta. This happened a few weeks ago and have caused lots of riots and protests and people going crazy in the streets, holding up signs, tearing down stores, attacking others. Lots of crazy stuff has happened as a result of this supposed crazy amount of police brutality. Now, we now know that those arrests were more justified than people let on, and also there wasn't exactly a racial element like was claimed. There's no proven racism in any of these cases. It's just kind of assumed to be racism, and it's race baited by a lot of people in the media, the celebrities, the liberals, all those things, the news channels, CNN. They're all making this chaos happen, and what's resulted is a lot of people hating on the cops now, blaming the cops for all their problems. And in addition, what's happened in today's story? Today's story is a new spin on that, and actually what they're doing now is they're turning to the superheroes, the fictional heroes in comic books and movies and TV shows, and they're saying that those heroes are kind of like cops now, and they should be re-examined as well. That's right. Time magazine has had a story about this, and a couple people are talking about it, and already out the gate we could tell it sounds rather ridiculous. I mean, this is a fictional character discussion, and they're trying to compare them to cops, but it's really not the first time this has happened either. We saw this and discussed this a couple of times already. Most recently, when the new Spider-Man game was announced, people brought this argument back up because when the original Spider-Man game came out for PlayStation in 2018, there was a meme just like this. People attacked Spider-Man because he was helping the cops in his game, and they hate cops. The liberals hate cops, and that's just the end game that they're at with this discussion. They're going after heroes. They're going after our icons, our fictional characters, mostly because they're popular. We know they love to go after popular things, and we're going to talk about why. We're going to go into the details, read the article, and all that more soon too. But first, let's take a quick moment to check out our sponsors. A new bill has hit Washington, and it's trying to invade your privacy right now. It's called the Lawful Access to Encrypted Data Act, and if passed, it will be the end to warrant-proof encryption, meaning both you and I won't have privacy from the government, even encrypted data. That's why I do everything I can to ensure my privacy online, which means always keeping my VPN or virtual private network turned on. Using a VPN will hide your location online and stop advertisers from creating a profile about you. And it will also allow you to surf the web anonymously. That's why I recommend a VPN, and I also recommend the company I love and trust, Virtual Shield. So make sure you check out the link below or go to virtualshield.com/NoBS and start protecting yourself online today. Thanks for your time, and now back to the show. Great, and remember, without these sponsors supporting us and without you guys checking them out, this show would not be possible. So thank you for taking the time to check that out. And now back to this discussion. Here's the article that first brought this attention to me. It says, the Time magazine says superheroes are like cops and should be re-examined. Now, this is actually an interesting point because it's firstly wrong. It's got a wrong assumption. And I think the first top tweet here has it pretty much nailed on the head. It says, superheroes aren't cops. Right out the gate, perfect point. Totally debunks the argument before we even get it started. They're not cops. They might seem like cops because they're stopping bad people, but in general, superheroes are going after like crazy villains. They go after super villains. Like aside from a few side crimes, like we talked about Spider-Man, he fights crime and he patrols the streets sometimes. Sometimes Batman does, but in general, like most of these superheroes, even these guys, their stories are focused on them just, going after Dr. Octopus or stopping the Joker or, joining the Justice League and stopping this thing or becoming an Avenger and time traveling and saving the universe in another timeline. They really address bigger issues. The kind of patrolling and the side stories are just kind of that. They're not really the focus in most of the media. The only time it actually comes up is in little moments, maybe in a movie or a show, might mention it in a comic. In a video game, it actually comes up more because you spend more time with it and you actually, like say for Spider-Man, you swing around the streets and there's a lot of side missions that give you time to kind of like fight normal crimes before you get to the big crime. Stuff like that happens, but in general, they're not cops. And then the next point is actually golden here. Sorry for my name says, How many times have superheroes been re-examined? This has actually happened many times, and here are some great examples. Watchmen, Dark Knight Returns, Daredevil, Punisher, the Dark Knight Trilogy, Man of Steel, Flashpoint, Civil War, etc. So this is something that's already happened for many, many years. Watchmen is a series that came out in the 80s. This was a full examination of the whole superhero genre. That was like the whole point, and that's been beloved for many years. It was turned into a movie around 2009, I believe. And then there's the Dark Knight trilogy, which had a lot to do with that. The Batman trilogy in the mid-2000s up until 2012. Man of Steel came out in 2013. Flashpoint is an older comic story that's been animated into a movie. It's being made into a movie right now, a live-action movie. So yeah, this is Captain America Civil War, by the way. I mean, this is something that's happened already, and the demand for it isn't really high. The only reason it's coming up now is, of course, because there's a lot of anti-cop stuff right now. So anything that seems to be law and order, like a Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, whichever hero you may pick, that's going to be under attack because basically leftists, they don't like to follow the rules. They want to be able to do whatever they want, whenever they want. And they also are double standard because they will impose these rules on other people. They won't let us do things like demonstrate and gather in large numbers, following the law even so. Like we can't celebrate 4th of July, but they can go and have demonstrations in the streets, crowd themselves together for pride rallies, BLM, all that stuff. So we can see the greater story and how crazy it is. So here's the Daily Wire article in question. It says, Time magazine says superheroes are like cops and should be re-examined. Let's see what else they have to say. On Monday, Time magazine published an article called, We're Re-Examining How We Portray Cops on Screen. Now it's time to talk about superheroes, in which the author, a staff writer for the magazine, rips into cops and superheroes simultaneously, saying, what are superheroes except cops with capes who enact justice with their powers? I love how that's being said that like that's a bad thing. I mean, I just can't believe that's supposed to be a negative. Like enforcing the law and fighting crime is bad now. I mean, here's the article from Time itself. It has a picture of Superman definitely getting worshipped like a hero here, like a god. But that's the thing they don't get. This is actually the point. That's why they brought it up. I know this movie. This is from Batman v Superman, I believe. And this was the whole point. Like that was the whole premise of the film. It had a lot of inspiration from The Dark Knight Rises, that series that we just mentioned that re-examines the whole superhero ethos, the myth, the whole idea of propping these guys up. And then that's why Batman comes into this story and tries to take down Superman. He says, he asks him if he bleeds. He's trying to bring down this whole mythical man. And that's the whole thing. They're showing this picture kind of out of context in this article. Like I can see them already saying this and showing this as a way to say, oh, we worship superheroes too much or something. And yeah, I think you could still make that argument, but to use this picture is dishonest because that's the whole point of this story, was to give you more of a nuance and to re-examine it and to show it in a different light. Now you can like that film as or not. Batman v Superman was a little controversial when it came out in 2016, but that was a lot of the message. In the past several weeks, as calls to defund the police have gone mainstream, pop culture critics and fans have been reconsidering how Hollywood heroizes cops. Legal procedurals and shoot-'em-up action movies have long presented a skewed perception of the justice system in America, in which the police are almost always positioned as the good guys. Because they are the good guys? I mean, there's also a lot of movies about corrupt cops already. Like this, they're acting like this stuff doesn't happen. There's a lot of these instances of cops stepping out of line, getting fired, going too far, becoming villains. Like this is a very, very, very misleading story already. These good cop narratives are rarely balanced out with stories of systemic racism in the criminal justice system. The bad guys they pursue are often people of color, their characters undeveloped beyond their criminality. Okay, now let's just start with the systemic racism. Please, citation needed. You can't just say that word without any evidence. You can't just say there is racism without proving it. I mean, you need to show us what system has what racism where. I need to see a line in a law. I need to see something happening that's proven to be racist, like a judge who says they hate a certain kind of people and then convicts them for longer time periods. Like, you can't just guess. You can't just say, hey, there's more of this kind of person in jail. That means there's racism. That's not how this works. That's not how rational arguments are made. You can't just point to a gap and say, hey, that's because of racism. Just because there's a difference doesn't mean something is wrong. There probably is something wrong. There's definitely a reason why certain groups and certain people might commit more crime or might get caught more or might get arrested for doing bad things. But it's not racism. It's usually having to do with them not being raised right and not learning to obey the law and respect authority and be good citizens. That's the main thing. That's what we're talking about here. In this period of reckoning, the long-running shows Cops and the widely watched out live PD have been canceled. Actors and writers who contributed to police procedurals are criticizing their own work and donating money to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Parents are protesting benevolent portrayals of canine cops in the children's television show Paw Patrol, and Ava DuVernay film collective Array is launching the Law Enforcement Accountability Project to highlight stories of police brutality and counteract a biased narrative. Well, speaking of biased narratives, this Ava chick is biased as hell. She is a terrible racist. She hates white people. She supports criminals all the time. She's the one that did that terrible Central Park 5 documentary trying to make them look innocent. This is just classic defending of black people because these guys are black too, and they don't care if they commit crimes. So that's what's gone on and exploded into the liberal mainstream. And then Time Magazine is trying to support this, but they just don't get it. I mean, they're just assuming, like, they put these bad guys in quotes and they say the cops are heroes as if that's wrong. I mean, cops are enforcing the law. They're trying to keep our country safe. So that is a very heroic thing to do. Criminals, on the other hand, are selfish and they're doing bad things, sometimes evil things. Sometimes they're cheating people and hurting them. So yes, they are often portrayed as villains. You know, there are maybe a few good criminals out there. I know a lot of people want to think they're stealing like to save the world, like Robin Hood, steal from the rich, give to the poor, or say Aladdin who steals bread just to survive. You know, you want to justify little things like that, but that's just not the case in the real world. We're talking about people that are committing mega crimes, killings, robberies at gunpoint, you know, hurting people, setting them on fire, destroying property. Like, none of this is justified. And attacking the cops isn't going to fix that. Like, okay, we're taking out cops, live PD. We've talked about all these shows. And how ridiculous is it that Paw Patrol gets brought up by Time, and they're not even going to address, like, the fact that that is absolutely insane. We're talking about cop dogs in a cartoon show for kids, and they want to remove that. And that's just absolutely absurd. And the fact that they go along with it and say that this is legitimate is just insane. I mean, Time is just totally losing it. Now they're going to bring up Punisher? Are you serious? This is another example. So get this. We went over a few examples at the beginning. We saw that tweet. We talked about him. Punisher was on that list of re-examining heroes. Punisher is not meant to be this superhero, like, flawless guy. He's very flawed. He does a lot of killing. He had this dark past. Like, he's not meant to be this squeaky clean hero. This is another example, another terrible example of Time. Just, they don't understand these characters. They don't understand the comics. They don't understand the real world, like how cops and people are heroes. We're trying to save the lives of innocent people. And it's just insane. It just goes to show how far this kind of anti-cop rhetoric is getting, how far these leftists will push their narratives. They've gone absolutely insane. They're going after fictional characters, which is just not helping anyone. And they're also not understanding these characters they're trying to tear down. They're trying to present them as if they're heroes. And we know already, like, this guy, this says cops with capes, and then they brought up Batman v Superman. This is an ironic portrayal in the movie showing that it's bad to worship these heroes. This is showing that, you know, cops can lose their control and that not all heroes wear capes, you know, kind of thing. Like, that's like what it's saying. This says cops with capes. That really, this is like not all heroes wear capes. Punisher is like a total anti-hero. Now, granted, he's had a lot of different stories, and I'm not super familiar. This is a picture of Punisher with the Netflix show, his Netflix show from Marvel. And, you know, I'm not getting into the specifics, but I know enough about him to say that this is totally wrong. That about wraps things up. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure you comment your thoughts on everything below. Also, hit the like button to help get things shared. And until next time, have a great day.